Good morning, West family. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to be with us right now. So, I want to talk to you today about something that's a little icky and sticky. Today, we are going to talk about hurry sickness and chronic busyness. I have some ironic stories to share with you in just a few minutes, but welcome back to our second week of our cancel culture series. If this is your first time joining us, thank you so much for being here. We want to connect with you and we have a gift for you. So if you could text the word welcome to the number you see on the screen, which is 704 343 8955. We would love to connect with you and maybe have some more conversations about cancel culture and things that in today's society should be canceled, just like busyness and hurriness. Thank you so much for being here today, and I'm so excited to share this message with you.
Is this jar full? And is it full now? Yes. And how about now? Is the jar full now?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Now, I want you to recognize that this jar represents your life. Golf balls are the important things, your family, your friends, your health, and your passions. The pebbles are the other important things, your car, your job, your home. And the sand is everything else, it's just the small stuff. Now, if you put the sand in the jar first, you won't have room for the pebbles or the golf balls. Same is true in life. If you spend all your energy and your time on the small stuff, you won't have time for all the really important things that matter to you. Pay attention to the things that are critical to your happiness. Take care of the golf balls first, the really important things. Set your priorities, because everything else is just sand. Yes?
Professor, what does the beer represent?
I'm glad you asked. It goes to show that no matter how full your life may seem to be, there's always room for a couple of beers with a friend.
I love that video. I think it's so fun. And especially as a 26-year-old in the year 2023, a beer with friends is necessary to make it through the busyness of life and every day. So I have a question for you. Did you know that Jesus was just like never in a hurry? In today's world, today's society, and especially in 2023, but it's been happening for years, maybe even hundreds of years, we are progressively getting more busy, and living in a complete hurry. So the story that I said was ironic that I wanted to share was I knew that I was going to be talking about hurriness today. And this morning, in the couple hours that I've been awake, I've had a laundry list of things to do. I had to go to the gym. I had to let the dogs out. I had to feed the dogs. I had to take them back out. I had to shower. I had to get dressed. I had to make the bed. I had to do what felt like a million things. Now, after completing that laundry list, I forgot to pack the things in my car that I need to take back to Target while I'm on this side of town. And I forgot a Bible to record this message with. Like, are you kidding? I feel like I need this message just as much as everybody else, and we all need this message. The concept of living life in such a hurry, even though that's how our world is built today, is so harmful for us. I also have a very beautiful and well-written, well-laid out message right here on 4 sheets of paper, and it's jam-packed with information. I did so much research on this topic because it just fascinates me. And my ultimate goal in the way that I feel like we could all be close to Jesus and live like Jesus is to learn how to slow down. So I apologize in advance if I'm looking down at my sheet a lot. This is just such good information, and I do not want to miss anything by being in a hurry. So today we're going to talk about how Jesus was never in a hurry, and why are we as his followers trying to live in a state of hurriness. It doesn't even make sense. If we want to live like Jesus, the number one thing we should pay attention to is learning how to live a slowed down life. Now, here are some facts that I'm going to run through quickly. The world has been moving fast for a very long time. And honestly, people call this day and age and this era that we currently live in the age of acceleration. We are constantly moving, and definitely at a fast pace. We're not just continuously moving forward. We are running and sprinting as fast as we can to the next thing. None of us even know what the next thing is, but we are just constantly running as fast as we can towards nothingness, or nothing that we can pinpoint. Ironically, it was the monks who first created the clock. They originally created the clock so that they could set certain hours for prayer. And for us back in the day, in 1370, the first clock was actually put out and invented and showcased in Germany. So the first clock was the first time that we set hours. Before 1370, we lived with the seasons. We lived with sunrise, sunset. That's how we did our entire life. With the invention of the clock, we now could falsify anything. We've created the 9-to-5 work hours. We've done all of these crazy things that were never natural to us as human beings prior to them. The next invention was in 1879 when Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. Now, I just realized what I said. Obviously, that was not the next invention, but the next invention we're going to talk about relative to time and how we look at hurriness. So the light bulb was an amazing invention. I could not imagine my life without the light bulb today. But think of the harm that it may have set us up for. Now people were working longer hours. They were working outside of times that they usually weren't working prior. Families stayed up later. Sleep schedules were different. Something that I learned also on TikTok, because that's the main place that I seem to be getting all of my information these days, was how we really harp on 8 hours of sleep right now, and that's the baseline for sleep. I learned that back in this time, maybe prior to the 1800s, but definitely around when the monks were inventing the clock, humans slept for 12 hours, 11 to 12 hours. And first of all, I'm like, ooh, that sounds amazing to me. That totally fits right up my alley. But what was interesting to me is when we think about people that lived hundreds of years ago and we say, oh my gosh, how did they do it? They got up at 4 a.m., they had breakfast at 5 a.m., and blah, blah, blah. They were going to bed at 5:30 every night. This was not something that they weren't more productive, and they weren't doing this, that, and the other. Their sleep was half the amount of time that they were awake, and we definitely do not live by that anymore. So then after the light bulb, which jacked up our sense of time, of when we can be working, when we should be eating, when we should be living life. Then there was the invention of things that we classify as labor-saving devices. Think of the microwave, the dishwasher, laundry machines. I would absolutely lose my mind if I had to wash laundry by hand today. I don't know about you, but I can definitely say I am shallow enough to admit that if I had to wash laundry by hand, I probably would wear the same thing every single day and wash it once a month, or however long I could get away with washing it. The invention of all of these labor-saving devices was great in theory. It was supposed to save us time so that we could focus on doing more important things. It was supposed to be more convenient for us so we could really focus on family and our passions and things that really gave life to us. But guess what? It did the exact opposite. Now, when you're participating or doing an activity with these labor-saving devices, you now think, great, I have more time freed up so that I can fill it with XYZ. We don't use it in its original context. Like, I'm pretty sure the washing machine was invented so that we could throw our laundry in really quickly and then we could go rest and we could go fill our soul with whatever it is that we wanted to do. Not to throw laundry into the washing machine so that you can vacuum the house, clean the house, cook dinner, do all of these other things that are also energy sucking. That's just my opinion on all of these things. I'm not sure if you agree or not, but it's crazy that no one can deny that with these labor-saving devices, the purpose for what they were intended to do is not how we actually use them today. And that just stinks. That stinks. So, I want to share something with you from 1967. In a famous Senate subcommittee, they claimed that by 1985, the average American would only work 22 hours a week for 27 weeks a year, and that the main problem of our future would be too much leisure time. But by 1973, so just 6 years after this Senate subcommittee made those predictions, leisure time had decreased by 37% already. I couldn't imagine. I'm sure we could Google and find what leisure time percentage we have now, but I would assume it's probably close to 0%. Now, I do have another question for you. I want you to put in the chat if you have any guesses on what the answer to this question could be. Historians claim that this happening in 2007 is the equivalent of the Gutenberg press being invented. We'll take a couple seconds so you can answer in the chat because I think this question is so fascinating. What was happening in 2007? My guess is Facebook. It's wild to think about. In 2007, I was only 11 years old. To me, 2007 is like just yesterday for some reason. It just doesn't seem that long away. And I guess relative terms, it's not, but I was only 11 years old. Okay, so we had a guess of Facebook. Let me tell you what happened in 2007 that historians literally claim was just as transformative. Is that the right way to say that? Transformative for society as the Gutenberg press being invented was. Drum roll. The iPhone came out. Yes, let's all laugh. Ha 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 ha. Android users are going to be like, oh, who cares? The iPhone was invented in 2007, and historians claim that this was just as big for humanity as the Gutenberg press. Now, why would they compare those two things? Well, we have everything we need in a tiny computer that is just portable, that we can take anywhere and everywhere with us. The average user touches their phone. This is not just iPhones anymore. They touch their phone 2,600 times a day. I can't even fathom that number. But think about all the times I was talking with Lane when I read this statistic. And her and I, we sit in the back of that office, and even if our phone's not vibrating, our watch isn't vibrating, the phone's not lighting up, we just, out of nowhere, will tap our phone and make it light up just to check. And it's like, how many times are we subconsciously doing that and we're not even aware of touching it? 2,600 times a day. I wish I would have went through and broke down how many times a minute or an hour that was, and maybe we can do that and post it somewhere. But that's insane. That is an insane amount of times to check your phone every single day. And get this. People over 35 are on their phone 3 hours a day. That's 3 entire hours on your phone collectively. And people under 35 are on their phone 5 hours per day. Oh, thank you, Josh. 2,600 times a day is 108 times an hour. That is nuts. That's so crazy. I want you to pay attention to that this week. And not that anyone has the time nor wants to count to 2,600 during the day, but if you could be aware of how many times you touch your phone per day and let us know, that would be great because I'm really fascinated by all of this. So over 35, you're on your phone for 3 hours a day. Under 35, on average, you're on your phone 5 hours a day. That's almost as long as we sleep, we are collectively on our phones. Psychologists are now making the point that the vast majority of humanity checks their phone under the category of compulsion. So, how I was just explaining, we don't even realize that we're doing it. It's now classified as a compulsion to just check your phone. Oh, check your phone. I might be missing something. Oh, check your phone. Check your phone. It's crazy. It's crazy. And the iPhone has only been around for, how many years is that? 15? Yeah, 15, 16 years. And we are now pretty much addicted to them to the point where our brains are now compulsing to try to do it. It's a compulsion. So, all of that to say, when you look at Jesus and his lifestyle, he was never in a hurry. And that seems so strange to me. It might seem strange to you, but I'm like, how? You are the most important person who ever walked this planet. How were you not in a hurry and felt like you had a million things to do? So our scripture today is going to be the story of Lazarus. So I'm going to read it. It's a little lengthy, but it's important. So I invite you to meditate on this story. Now a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. The sisters sent word to Jesus, "Lord, the one you love is sick." Side note, Lazarus was one of Jesus' best friends. When he heard this, Jesus said, "This sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it." Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. And then he said to his disciples, "Let us go back to Judea." "But Rabbi," they said, "a short while ago the Jews there tried to stone you, and yet you are going back?" Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours of daylight? Anyone who walks in the daytime will not stumble, for they see by this world's light. It is when a person walks at night that they stumble, for they have no light." After he had said this, he went on to tell them, "Our friend Lazarus has been asleep, but I am going there to wake him up." So, Jesus gets word that his friend Lazarus is sick. He stayed there for 2 more days. He stayed where he was for 2 more days before he even made it seem like he needed to go where Lazarus was. For me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I get word that my friend is sick. I'm texting them, I'm calling them, asking if they need anything, maybe stopping by the store, then going to their house, doing X, Y, Z. One of Jesus' best friends was sick and dying, and he's like, I'll stay for 2 days. I'll stay for 2 more days. Like, can we live like that? I desire so deeply to live like that. He had such peace in knowing that whatever he was going to do next with Lazarus' death was certain. And he knew he didn't need to hurry. And he knew he didn't need to rush around and hurry up and walk his however many miles to get there. He was so relaxed and so calm and so certain in the peace that was offered in the story of Lazarus. There are so many other stories in the Bible where Jesus is interrupted or they try to hurry him. And he's just like, look, that's not what needs to happen here. If we are living in a state of hurriness, then we are never really present. And that's huge for me in my personal life. I see it amongst all of my peers. There are times when we go out to eat or we're spending time with some of our friends and we all can't even enjoy what it is that we're actually doing together in community because we know afterwards we have our laundry list of things that need to get done in order to lay our head down at night and rest without thinking of a million things that we have to do. So now I ask this question. Why then do we as Jesus followers feel like we have to live in a state of hurry? Yeah, of course, society lives in a state of hurry, so it's just one of those things where we do live in this world. It's a broken world, but we are here in this world, and it's hard not to fall into the same things that everyone else falls into. But as Jesus followers, hurrying should be one of the last things on our list to do. Neither you nor I speeding up our pace of life will get us to our destination quicker. No matter what it is that we ask God for or we ask Him to show us speeding up the process is never going to get us there quicker. We are to match Jesus's pace, not expect Him to match our pace. In John 21:22, He says, "You must follow me." That was my biggest slap in the face during all of this research. That tiny little, "you must follow me." I've never read it before as a, like pointing the finger, how I just described it. You must follow me. But it makes so much sense. We are always trying to make Jesus fit into what we want Him to be or do or how to perform. We want Him to match whatever it is that we're currently living in. Although He does, this little reminder of, you must follow me. So if Jesus' life was lived at a slow pace and He was peaceful and He was never in a hurry, that's what we are supposed to be doing as well. So now I want to share with you this conversation that happened between a famous, I'm not entirely sure if he's a theologian or a philosopher. I know he's a teacher of some sort. He says, I only took a little short part of the conversation, but he says, hurry is the great enemy of our spiritual life in our day. You must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. And the person interviewing him says, that's great. What else? And there was a long pause. And Willard replies, there is nothing else. Willard is doing an entire study during this time of how us living in a hurry is completely eliminating all possibility for us to spiritually form. Our spiritual formation can almost not exist if we are just in a constant state of hurry. Every time we rush around somewhere and every time we're doing this, we're doing that, we are not sitting in peace with God. If someone were to ask you, what's the greatest threat to your spiritual life today? What would you say? Throw it in the chat. Let's take a couple seconds and see what you would say if someone came up to you and asked, what's the greatest threat to your spiritual life today? I'll go ahead and say, we probably wouldn't say hurrying, would we? I know I wouldn't. If I had to take a guess, I would probably say not taking the time to read my Bible or not taking the time to listen to worship music. Or I would come up with every other excuse except for, man, I'm in too much of a hurry. I think that calls us out on the lifestyle that we live, so it's not something that we always want to admit. There was another professor, when asked if he could describe Jesus in one word, what would it be? I'm sure all of us go to things like a friend, love, all of these great descriptors that every human, I'm sure, wants to be described as. But guess what the one word is that this professor used? Relaxed. What? That doesn't even make sense to me. I mean, it does make perfect sense, but that would have never crossed my mind. Jesus is relaxed. That's how that professor replied to the question. And that frustrated me at first. Think about all the other descriptors, like I just mentioned: compassionate, powerful, driven, holy, all of these things. Relaxed is what was chosen. Now that is powerful. In the 1960s, a Japanese theologian wrote a book called 3 Mile an Hour God. He noticed that the average speed that human beings walk at is 3 miles an hour. Jesus, who is God, walked at 3 miles per hour. He is God. He is love. and he walks at 3 miles per hour. I thought that was so profound. Tony and I stumbled upon an article one day that was talking about how many miles per day on average Jesus walked. Because, like for people who are into physical activity, 10,000 steps per day is the, not required, the encouraged amount of steps, suggested amounts of steps to get per day. That equals about 5-ish miles, I believe, 4 or 5. On average, every single day, Jesus walked 25 miles. 25 miles. Now, there are some people at West who walk those kinds of miles. I won't call them out, but they know who they are, and they do it as a group, and it's amazing, and it's cool, and it's fun. But now think, would any of us have the time to walk 25 miles per day? Probably not. If you think about how much time per day your job takes up, how much time it requires to eat, how much time you have to sleep, how much time you have to do laundry, that you have to talk to people, that you have to do X, Y, Z. 25 miles per day at the speed of 3 miles per hour. Now, that's not a fast walk, but it's also not moving like a snail. That is just casually walking. Jesus knew all of these places that he had to be in his lifetime, and he knew that they were going to be 25 miles away, and he was still able to not rush. He didn't call up the buggy to come get him. He didn't hop on the closest horse to go take him away. No, he walked, and he was fine with walking at 3 miles per hour. That's so encouraging to me. So I know that was a ton of information. I know it was jam-packed with facts and all this fun stuff to learn about. So now what? What do we do now that we know that we shouldn't be living in a hurry? And that's so much easier said than done. So I'm not expecting you to hear this message and then go out and never live in a hurry again. That's not going to happen. That's unrealistic. Everything that we want to accomplish takes practice. So now I have a list of action items that we can try to practice together or individually to try to lessen the state of hurry that we're always in. So here are some suggestions. Drive the speed limit. That one's already that's going to be impossible for me. I drive a tiny Honda Civic, and I feel like it's a go-kart sometimes, and I'm just driving like I'm crazy, which I'm not proud of, but this first one, drive the speed limit. Why are we not just driving the speed limit? Why are we in a hurry? Do we think us getting to our destination 2 minutes quicker is going to change the course of our entire life? Drive the speed limit. Come to a full stop at a stop sign. Another one that I don't do. Get into the slow lane and stay there. Show up early to an appointment and don't check your phone. Walk slower. Try out that 3 miles per hour and see how you feel while doing it. Get into the longest checkout line at the grocery store or retail store. We've been groomed for efficiency, and we've been groomed to be in a hurry. Turn your smartphone into a dumb phone. I know a ton of us close to my husband, Tony, laugh because at some point he got himself a flip phone that was still hundreds of dollars to purchase, so it wasn't like it was some cheap alternative. But he was tired of the FaceTime. He was tired of social media. He was tired of all of these things. And he got the little clip on your belt that that you wear, and that bad boy just clipped right in there, and all you could do was call or text him, and he loved it. He's back to the iPhone now, but his little stint of the flip phone was just the greatest joy for us who knew him because it makes perfect sense because if you know Tony, then flip phone is just a duh. Tony would have a flip phone, but it was also the fact that he had a flip phone. He actually wanted the flip phone, which is just hilarious. But turn that smartphone into a dumb phone. See what it feels like to not FaceTime people. To not even text people. Try to call them on the phone. What would you do if you didn't have Google on your phone or you didn't have Facebook on your phone? All of this access to everyone and everything as soon as you want it. Instantaneous gratification. Start a journal. Eat slower and chew food slower. and speak slowly. That one's definitely hard for me. I speak like I'm crazy. Letting other people finish their sentence and waiting before you speak. So, really, that's practicing listening as well. I'm a work in progress. I hope you are a work in progress, because the great threat to our spiritual development is living life in a hurry. Today, let's slow down our pace and take time to think about Jesus and show others Christ in us by slowing down. Will you pray with me? Lord, thank you so much for being with us today. Show us how to slow down today so we can be and see even more of you in ourselves and in others. Use us to glorify yourself even more to others by slowing down. The world is crazy. We're in an age of acceleration. But to feel close to you, we should slow down. Speaking slowly, driving the speed limit, all of those things are totally doable. It's going to be extremely hard, and we ask for guidance and help and strength to begin to live a life that looks more like yours. But I know we can do it, especially together as a community. We can begin to encourage one another to live in a slower paced way, to be closer to you, to be more like you. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Thank you so much for being here. I really hope that this hurriness has caught your attention, and I hope I didn't make you feel like absolute crap about yourself, because this is something we all struggle with, but there is encouragement in knowing that we can move forward in a slower pace. I hope to see you guys next week. Thanks for being here.